Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Kesteven series. This is a large Lincolnshire district centred around the town of Sleaford. There's 75 parishes here, so let's take a look at one of them. Welcome back to North Kesteven again, folks. It's another dark morning, but the light is starting to become a bit better, so in a few moments time we should be able to see exactly where we are. We're beginning this one at a recreation ground, and here you can see a list of some of the things you can't do here at Moor Lane. No power kites, no model aircraft, no drones, no dogs, no motorcycles, no horses, and no golf. Doesn't say anything about no village idiots though, and definitely nothing about no GoPros. You'll find this in the parish of Branston and Mere. The North Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Branston and Mere, Brandr's Farm and Lake. The last of this current run of North Kesteven parishes brings us to Branston and Mere, one of the biggest we've covered so far to the southeast of Lincoln. Made up of 3 settlements, Branston and Mere, like its neighbours, stretches across the district from the A15 all the way to the River Witham. It's also similar in another regard. Like its southern counterparts, the main village of Branston has for quite some time been associated with potato farming. In this episode, we'll encounter the Branston Potato factory, which offers a lot of local employment. However, even though it has the modern spud at its heart, Branston has a history stretching back centuries. Its most notable buildings are Branston Hall and All Saints Church, which dominate the older southern sections, tight, twisty roads with stone walls. In the north, it's a different story. Branston is very much a commuter settlement, and there are huge residential developments. The raft of 20th century housing is only broken up by a handful of landmarks, such as the local secondary school, Branston Academy. The other 2 settlements here are Mere, which was combined with Branston in 1921, and Branston Booth, located close to the Causeway, a long straight road that connects this part of North Kesteven to West Lindsey. Let's go and see it all. It took an absolute age to get light on this cold January morning, so I am hoping you can see what I could in these early sections. We start at Moor Lane Recreation Ground, located in the far southeastern corner of Branston. This has tennis courts, a skate park and football pitches. I promise. It's located right next to one of Branston's newest housing estates, known as the Spires, which features its own little play area. This is Goldcrest Avenue. Housing is something Branston is certainly not short of. It's very much a modern commuter settlement. Proof of that comes easily in the form of the B1188 Sleaford Road. Even at this hour in the morning, traffic is plentiful. With all these residents, Branston needs all the basic essentials you'd expect from a small town. Here's a garage, but at one time this was a petrol station as well. At this point I briefly left Sleaford Road to take in Villa Close. Again, another pretty modern chunk of housing, it's named thanks to Branston's Roman villa, unearthed near Folly Lane. In it, a memorial stone was also found that read, "In this estate lie the bones of Aurelia Concessa, a very pure girl." A short path then links us to Silver Street next. Originally this road was known as Bleak Street, and given the dark morning, it was living up to its old name. To be honest though, this street is every bit as important to Branston as the B1188. This is the road that connects the village to the Branston Potato factory via the village's central traffic-lighted crossroads. It's not uncommon to see heavy goods vehicles here heading towards the factory. The War Memorial also sits in a small garden on this junction too. This was erected in 1920 and it lists a total of 45 names. The garden is actually termed the Village Green. It even has its very own lit gate. Let's go under this and across the crossroads to Station Road next. Up here, we'll find several of Branston's amenities. Up first, we have the local chippy, Dillon's Place. The building next door is Stuart Wallace Electrical Limited, a local appliance shop that's been going since 1976. If it's general shops you're after though, well, you're in the right place here. A few steps later, you're into a small parade of them, based around a car park. There's a second area of shops to see later too. This one features a surgery, the Branston and Heington family practice. There's a pharmacy located around the back of this too. Several areas of Branston owe their history to the Co-op, the company formerly known as the Lincolnshire Cooperative Industrial Society. The mural on the shop's wall is by Alan Potter. It celebrates Branston's 100 years of history with the Co-op going back to 1910. It's all detailed in a handy little plaque. The society built some of the houses on Lincoln Road in the 1930s, as well as some of the bungalows along Station Road in the 1950s. The other shops in this area include a Chinese takeaway, a hair salon and a vet's. Behind this parade is Branston Junior School. In 1977, children from this very school had to go to Lincoln County Hospital after a crop spraying aircraft inadvertently sprayed their playground. Speaking of crops, it's potato farming that dominates Branston's local economy. Historically though, it was more about the production of wool. Let's make for the High Street next via Abel Smith Gardens, a street built on a former allotment site where we'll see that history hasn't been forgotten. At the end of Paddock Lane, where it meets the High Street, you'll find a collection of metal sculptures created by the artist James Sutton. They are Lincoln Longwool sheep, and they're heading downhill to the sheep wash. We'll be passing over that shortly. First, we're heading uphill instead. This here is the car park for the Branston Home Guard Club, located directly opposite. Before this ever served any kind of beer, it was a store for hops, the plant used to flavour it. I found that fact mildly amusing. Halfway up the hill we find the cemetery. This is actually not a cemetery though, technically it's the churchyard, it's just detached from the church itself. It's over the way we go now to Church Road, where the huge exterior of All Saints will greet us very shortly. Although difficult to date, there are two separate early building periods visible in the outside walls, Saxon and Saxo-Norman. The southwest corner of the nave was probably part of an earlier Saxon tower. The present tower is typical of the late Saxon style found all across Lincolnshire. This was one of the first ever churches in the UK that was lit by gas lighting. Gas was produced in a small private gasworks at the back of an old barn in nearby Rectory Lane. In 1962, on Christmas Day no less, All Saints suffered a major fire which many older residents still recall. To go with the church, there's a church hall. In the car park in front of it, you'll find these trees, which stand over a very attractive mosaic interwoven into their trunks. Many social events take place in this building, but Branston also has a village hall for those purposes too, on Lincoln Road. This little building is the parish council office. The council was formed in 1921 when the two former parishes of Branston and Mere were combined to give us the boundaries we have today. There was a notice board here, so I did the usual honours. That's 21 down and 54 to go. We're deep in the heart of the old village now. That's why next door you'll find an old forge. Now, seeing as we're so close to the church, it's pretty reasonable to expect there's an old vicarage or rectory close by, right? Well, there is, and Branston's offering in that department is simply gorgeous. This is Hainton House, a Grade 2 listed Georgian property built in 1765. Built of 7 bays and 3 stories tall, it was originally the rectory. Between 2013 and 2014, extensive conservation and renovation work was carried out to create 7 unique apartments within the main house. A spacious cottage and a charming period smokehouse were also brought back to life, creating further accommodation within its grounds. Let's head down the hill now back towards the main road, because next we're making for Branston's pub. At the foot of the hill is the other narrow access road around the back of Hainton House, the aptly named Rectory Lane. Where the two roads meet is the Wagon and Horses. There were 2 other pubs in times past. One of them, the Plough, used to stand opposite the Wagon and Horses on the High Street. It was demolished in the 1970s to straighten what was a dangerous bend. Standing beside the pub these days is a cafe, which is inside the old library. Let me tell you, they do a really good breakfast. The library is now located at the secondary school. This area, by the way, is known to the locals as Pub Corner. Next we have more artwork, a set of pipes which mark the position of the sheep wash located under this very car park. It was fed by this stream, one of 3 that runs through Branston, all of which drain into the River Witham. That stream sits at the foot of a valley, and as a result we've now got to climb the side of it. The stream also powered a water wheel connected to a water pump that used to supply several country houses. Pictured here is the wheel in question, and you can find it on Waterwheel Lane. The rest of Lincoln Road is a little nondescript, if I'm being totally honest. It continues to rise from the valley to the hill's summit. The only real landmark of note along the way is a second garage by the name of Mastercraft. At the top of the hill you'll encounter a bus shelter. There are 5 buses that serve Branston, so take it from me, commuting to Lincoln from here is easy. You'd also use this stop if you wanted to visit Branston Hall. It's a hotel, but it was originally a country house, historically the seat of the Melville family. The house was designed by John McIver Anderson in 1885 and built in Elizabethan revival style. It was preceded by Branston Old Hall, which dated from 1735, and it burnt down in 1903. No less than 10 Bronze Age axes were found in the grounds of the new Branston Hall in 1906. Now, speaking of halls, if you cross the road here you're in the car park of the village hall. This is used for many purposes, including as a base for brownies and guides. Branston Bowls Club is here too, but short mat bowls can also be played inside the hall, and has been since 1992. The village hall's grounds include a playing field and a playground. A garden show used to take place every year at the village hall. Does that still happen, Branston people? I'm not totally sure. On the subject of events though, there's also a Christmas market in Branston every winter, which is usually located by the church. After eventually locating the path I needed next, we're on Linden Avenue, which backs onto the village hall's grounds. This next area is very residential. We're in a huge housing estate which dominates Branston's northwestern reaches. At the end of the road is the second parade of shops. This one has another surgery, that's the building on the end, as well as a couple of takeaway food outlets. Opposite those we have Branston C of E Infant School and the Little Pickles Preschool, which work in partnership with the Junior School on Station Road. The rest of this estate is formed of mainly 20th century bungalows on streets named after trees. It's a simple walk down Beach Road for us until we turn left to pick up a path through a marshy area known to the locals as Branston Jungle. This occupies the valley in the middle of the village, and part of it is a local nature reserve. The marsh is fed by 2 of the village streams as well as freshwater springs. The path through it emerges onto the hillside estate at Burland Court, a retirement complex built in 1979. Our last landmark is Branston Community Academy on Station Road. Built by Bosworth and Wakeford of Grantham and opened by the Earl of Ancaster in 1957, this was originally Branston County Secondary Modern. It became an academy in 2010 and it caters for around 350 pupils. Okay, this is the end of the route. I know it's not where we started, but I used the darkness this morning to get to the start point because there wasn't really much worth filming down Station Road. So yeah, this is the end point right here. Now, I've got two more things I want to cover in this episode, the first of which is to the south of Branston. It's a potato factory. On Mere Lane is the huge Branston Potatoes factory. Since 1968, Branston has been a major national player in the production of the humble spud. Whilst most local employment is provided by the City of Lincoln, Branston Potatoes holds its own, employing some 600 people. The company handles around 350,000 tonnes of potatoes every single year. Not bad for a venture that began as a group of farmers collaborating to grow and market potatoes and peas. Their first retail customer was Gerrard's, and these days you'll find Branston potatoes on the shelves at retail giants like Tesco and Waitrose. The company also prepare tinned vegetables these days too, under the banner of Branston Prepared Foods. Behind the factory and covering some 97 hectares is a solar park built to generate electricity for the national grid. It was given approval in 2018 and it's estimated it'll produce enough electricity to power 15,000 homes over a 35-year period. Staying in the car, we're now off to Branston Booths, a small village that lies just to the east of Branston in the Fens. It stands at the intersection of Cardyke and Branston Delph Drain. Now, this section was supposed to be a bit longer, and but for a closed road it would have been. Luckily, Branston Booth doesn't have a great deal. It has its own village hall as well as a former church mission hall built in 1931. A Methodist chapel with seating for 110 was built to the southwest of the village on Branston Moor in 1911. Branston Booths also had a pub at one time too, called the Green Tree. Branston Booths also has a piece of wartime history. The farmland which surrounds it was used during World War II as a decoy airfield in order to deflect enemy bombers away from RAF Waddington and to protect Lincoln from the Baedeker raids in 1942. It displayed lights simulating an active airfield and featured a display of muted lights to resemble an urban area during a blackout. Its name was simply RAF Branston Fen. The road we're on here is Branston Causeway. When Branston was all about wool production and not potatoes, goods were transported down this long straight road to be loaded onto boats at the River Witham. The road's history goes back way further than that though. Documentary evidence suggests that this began as an actual causeway across the marshy lands that the Fens once were. It's believed the causeway, like others in the Witham Valley, was part of a ritual and symbolic landscape dating from the Bronze Age all the way up to the 16th century. The rituals probably focused on water features, including the Witham itself, which was crossed by a ferry. Crossing the Witham these days is of course much easier. As you reach the causeway's end, you're met with a familiar sight, the road bridge which we stood on back in the Bardney episode of West Lindsey. This is the point where North Kesteven meets it. The eastern terminal of the causeway may relate to the 7th century foundation of Bardney Abbey. Now this leaves one more thing I want to cover, an island, one that's man-made. To finish, here's the story of the little-known Branston Island. When the Witham was straightened using clay from Fiskerton Fen in order to aid navigation, part of the river's former course was left in place. Branston Island is an irregular-shaped bit of land separated from the rest of the parish by the Witham, enclosed by the old and new courses of the river. The island, as a result, is the only part of North Kesteven which falls on the eastern side of the River Witham. So, is it possible to reach Branston Island? Well, yes it is. The parish contains Bardney Lock, which is accessed via a little lane off the causeway just before the road bridge. You can cross the river via a bridge at the lock and therefore set foot onto Branston Island. The current lock was built in 1865 to replace an original one that dated back to 1770. It controls water levels on the Witham at the most prominent of the cuts, which straightened and improved the river in the 18th century. The lock has unusual curved gates, a type that can also be seen at Anton Scout and at Stamp End in Lincoln. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.